Are you too busy? Too stressed out? Unhealthy? Then this is the place for you. Welcome to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals, where we help you create wellness and balance with a holistic approach that will work for you, even with the busiest of schedules, so you can live the life you want. And now, here's your host, Diane Randall.
Hello and welcome. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about setting personal boundaries, which are important in establishing healthy relationships and who we are and what we want in life. I'm going to give you 5 of my best tips for setting healthy personal boundaries. You know, in my experience, I've worked with lots of people on this topic. And today, I just want to share with you some basic ideas and information and recommendations around personal boundaries. So, what are personal boundaries? Well, they're lines that we draw around ourselves to maintain balance and protect our bodies, our minds, our emotions, and from time to time, from the behavior or demands of other people. They provide the framework to keep us from being used or manipulated by others, and they allow us to clearly, firmly, and confidently express who we are and what we want. They help us to take control of our lives, and they keep us safe. It can become so scary and confusing when your personal boundaries are closely tangled with another person, or they're too far away from other people. You are separate from other people, but it's okay for people to be close to you if you choose to let them become close to you. Setting personal boundaries can be hard at first because many of us didn't learn about setting boundaries growing up, and our boundaries got crossed over and over and over again as children. And if you've had negative experiences, your personal boundaries may have been weakened or they're just non-existent. And learning to set personal boundaries takes a lot of thought, it takes a lot of practice, and it takes work. But once they're in place, they help us to feel better about ourselves, our environment, our relationships, and they help us to navigate through our lives. Setting a boundary is not the same thing as trying to control or threaten someone. I'm not talking about that. There's a big difference. These personal boundaries are clear, firm, and as I said earlier, confidently expressed about making a choice that's best for you. And when I say you make choices that are best for you, yes, I know you have families, I know you have things in your external world that you're responsible for. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about setting boundaries so that you can take care of yourself and show up for other people, the people you love. So I'm going to give you my 5 tips. The first tip is, what makes it so hard to set a boundary? First thing, limiting beliefs we may hold. We may believe we're not worth it. We have no right to set a boundary. It's dangerous to say no. I'm uncomfortable with saying no. And sometimes, depending on our culture, we feel our role is to please others. Another thing are triggers, our emotions, behaviors, our thoughts, and words that cause us to explode with feelings. There's a longing to belong. We wish to be accepted, loved, wanted, or included by another person or group. And as I said earlier, having grown up in a home where appropriate boundary setting was not allowed, or in my family, as I grew up, and some of my clients in my experience as well, that wasn't even a thought process, setting a personal boundary. So as we've grown up into adults in our life and in our conditioning and in our experiences, we've learned how to set personal boundaries over time. For some of us are still working on it. The second tip is how to effectively communicate personal boundaries with people you know or don't know. You learn how to set boundaries by talking about your own feelings and the other person's specific behavior that you find problematic or inappropriate. So, I'm going to give you some ways to state your boundaries in your own words. I'm going to give you some examples that you can use or practice in setting your boundaries. And this can help you also organize your thoughts. First thing is state your feelings in terms that are all yours rather than attacking the other person. You want to start the sentence or the statement with I feel. Second thing is you want to state the specific behavior that's problematic or inappropriate from your perspective. And you don't want to use the word you never or you always. You want to start the sentence with when you. And the last thing is say what you specifically want the person to do. And you start the sentence or the statement with would you please, or you just say please. So you might say to a coworker, boss, or friend or acquaintance, I feel uncomfortable when you make sexual jokes. Please stop doing this in my presence. That's an example. The third tip I want to share with you is saying no. This two-letter word is the hardest thing for people to say. Many people are pleasers. Does this describe you? You often put yourself at a disadvantage by trying to accommodate everyone. And I want to ask you at this point in your life, how is that working for you? Because at this point, we kind of know what's working and what's not working, whether we work on it or not. You have a fear of being labeled as selfish, so you put your own personal needs on the back burner and you agree to do things that you know are not self-honoring to your well-being. And this is true especially for women because we're raised to be nurturers. In my experience, I've worked through it with myself, and in my practice, I work with women on these type of issues as well. And I just want to let you know that it's not selfish. It's very necessary in setting clear, firm, personal boundaries. It's important to let go of the need to please others at your own expense. So when you're asked to accommodate someone else's needs, I want you to check in with yourself and just ask the question, am I doing this at the expense of my own well-being, and move from there? I just want you to know that when you take care of yourself, you set your personal boundaries, you draw those lines to protect yourself. This allows you to take care of yourself so that you can show up for everyone in a safe, healthy way. The fifth tip I'd like to share with you is when you feel anger or resentment or you find yourself complaining, this is most likely when you want to set a boundary. But I want you to pause and I want you to check in with yourself. I want us to get in the habit of checking inside to see what you're feeling or experiencing in the moment before you act outwardly. I want you to check in with yourself and determine what you need to do or say, and then communicate that clearly, firmly, and confidently. And the last thing, tip number 5, learning to set healthy boundaries. It takes time. I want you to know it's a process. It's practice, practice, practice. You want to set these boundaries in your own time frame, and you want to do one at a time. And once that boundary's in place and you are comfortable and you are getting the feedback that you are comfortable with from setting that boundary, then I want you to set another boundary. It's important not to overwhelm yourself. As I say, and this is my third podcast, it just takes so much courage to change your life because you are going to upset people. People are used to you being one way, and here you are trying to change some things, not because they're used to you being who you are. And you want to take better care of yourself so you can be there for the people you love and care about. I want you to remember one thing: the boundaries you protect, other people will respect. I want to thank you for listening to this podcast on setting healthy personal boundaries. I want to know if you heard something that you can use in your life, something that you found of value. Let me know what you think. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Balanced Living for Busy Professionals. This podcast is sponsored by DianeRandallConsults.com. If you like this show, the best way to support it is by leaving 5-star feedback on iTunes. And please, feel free to email your questions, comments, and suggestions to feedback@DianeRandallConsults.com. Until next week, namaste.